Good evening, everyone. Uh, this is your MBA first semester class, and am I clearly audible? And my screen is visible to you people or not?
Yes, ma'am, visible.
Yes, it is visible. Okay. So, this is what you have to study in this paper. The paper is divided into four block 1, block 2, block 3, and block 4. In block 1, it is related to data collection and analysis, in which you will study how to collect data, present data, measure the central tendency or the similarity of the data, and what are the variations in skewness. The next unit is related, or the next block is related to probability and probability distributions. The next is with sampling and sampling distributions. And once you go with all these three blocks, then you will be able to understand what is the methods or the techniques you can use to forecast your business related terms like demand, supply, or any market condition. So this paper is really helpful in understanding the mathematical, quantitative, or the analysis part, and this is how it is divided in the IGNU syllabus. Today we are starting with data collection and analysis. Let me start my PowerPoint presentation. Is the screen visible to everyone? I hope it is visible because I have already tested that with the Word window. So, when we talk about data, data is the value or worth of any variable. Here, in this variable is basically related to any quantity or any aspect which you are studying. The variable can be related to, like, you are studying the relationship of demand or price, then demand and price both will be treated as variable. So the value or the worth which is given to that variable is called data. As price is measured in India in the form of rupees, then the value of that particular product or any quantity will be the worth of that price. Okay. And the data is generally in the form of numericals, or it is converted in the form of numerical value. So datas are assignments of value onto observations of events and objects, right? Events like, you can say, suppose you are purchasing a product and there is a survey going on, and in survey the question is asked like that, whether you are satisfied or not with the purchase of the product, and the answer may be in the form of yes or no. So yes is one event and no is the second event. So this is what observation of events. And when you convert this data into numerical form, then we say assignment of values. So if your answer is yes and you are giving one value to yes, and if your answer is no and the value given to no is 2, then this is what assignment of values to the particular data, which is yes no in this a very small problem which I took. So facts or figures from which conclusions can be drawn can also be considered as data. The facts or figures from which you can draw some conclusions or you can have some inference is actually the data. Or it can be a type of information obtained through mathematical operations on numerical data. Any type of information which is obtained. See, one thing which I want here, it's a new way of looking to how the data is created. Basically, you are responsible for creating data every point of time you are on internet, right? When you are seeing something or you are touching something or you are just browsing something, then you are giving that information to the main controller of that website or Google or whatever you are doing, and you are actually creating data also. So previously it was said that data can't be created, means information is actually gathered only, but in nowadays the you and any individual who is using all this internet and all, they are actually creating data also. So just imagine that within a fraction of second, how many and how much data is being created, and this data is need to be analyzed, because this helps in identifying whether you are how your business will grow, and what are the things which you should consider in mind before going for adopting any strategy or any new kind of business idea or expansion idea with your current particular business. So in general, there are two or four types of data, I should say. These are the basic comparative data or comparative narrative, which is primary and secondary data, and qualitative and quantitative data. Primary or secondary, both data can be qualitative also and quantitative also, right? So first we will move on with primary and secondary data. If you have any problem in between the presentation, you can ask me at that particular time also, or after the presentation also. It's up to you. So when we talk about primary data means original data that has been collected especially for the purpose in mind. Means you are actually collecting that data first hand, right? For example, questionnaire is the best example for collection of primary data. Questionnaire is a research instrument. It is generally used in doing researches, so it is a research instrument. It contains number of questions to be answered by respondents, okay? So but those questions are framed for a purpose, of which purpose is there in the mind, right? If it is related, if the study is related to identify whether your product demand is there or not, so the purpose in the mind will be the demand for the product, and then the questions will be formed accordingly for that, and the questionnaire is floated in front of the respondents. There are many examples. There are many softwares from which you can do this questionnaire testing. You have Google Docs. You can make questions on those docs and just mail the links to the respondents, and respondents will give you the answer for that particular questionnaire. So this process or this type of data which you are collecting first hand, that is your primary data. Questionnaire is not the only example, but it is the best example for that. Even your sales interactions, sales interviews, or you can say telephonic interviews, or through mails, if you are collecting data, then that is also primary data, the data which you are collecting first hand, right? And then this is the primary data. Then we move on to the secondary data. Secondary data has been collected for some another purpose, and you are using for data for your particular problem which you are analyzing now. So secondary data is already been established, so it will be in the form of books, journals, web pages, blogs, and in the form of newspaper, or in the form of statistical reports, right? Government reports are also there, company reports are also there. So all that data that has already been established or already been collected is known as secondary data. So here is the detailed difference of primary and secondary data is also given to you people. uh, so when we talk about the meaning of primary data, so data collected by researcher himself or the data that has already been collected by some other persons is secondary data. Originality, yes, of course, primary data is original and secondary data is copied, right? Or not original. So, primary data does not need any adjustment because it is already collected by keeping your problem in mind, right? With the problem which you are going to study. But secondary data needs adjustment. You have to reframe the tables, you have to identify which data is useful or which data is reliable or which data is validating the problem you are studying. Then comes the sources. So we have surveys, observations, experiments for primary data, and internal records or government published data for as the sources of secondary data. Then, yes, of course, secondary data is mainly quantitative in nature, and generally, your primary data is qualitative. It can be quantitative also, but in general terms, it is qualitative. For collecting any qualitative data, you need to have primary instruments like questionnaire and its interviews, etc. So next, reliability, because you are collecting that data, so that is more reliable than the data which has already been established, right? You don't know how that data is collected, who collected that, how it is being represented, right? So that is why the data which is collected first hand by the researcher is always more reliable than the data which has been already established, which is secondary data. Primary data collection is very time consuming process, right? If you are going to study demand of your product, you want to study at least 1 to 2000 respondents, right? And collecting data from questionnaires of 1 to 2000 respondents is really more time consuming. Okay, so that is why collection from primary data is very time consuming. Then need for trained investigators in terms of primary data, because you must be able to identify your respondents very clearly. That is why you need skilled personals in collecting primary data. Primary data is costly, yes, and secondary data is economical. Why primary data is costly? Because you will hire a research team or something for data collection and etc. That's why it is costlier as compared to secondary data. See, whatever is the difference between primary data and secondary data, the choice of the data which you are going to use is completely dependent on the nature of research which you are doing, right? If you are identifying your demand, then there are many methods to identify demand for future. That is, you can have direct interaction with the possible customers, or you can have your past data, and on the basis of statistical methods like regression or trend analysis, you can forecast for the next coming year or any year on the basis of past data. So the problem is basically you have to identify whether the situation or the problem which you are analyzing needs primary data or it needs secondary data. So as per the nature of research or the nature of research problem, you will choose primary data and secondary data as for the sources. Then comes qualitative data. So qualitative data is categorical measurement expressed not in terms of number, but rather by means of natural language description. So qualitative data is actually not the measurement in the form of numbers, but it can be in some language descriptions, like how satisfied are you from say particular any product to which the research is going on. So highly satisfied, less satisfied, neutral, dissatisfied, these kinds of words or these kinds of description generally help in collecting qualitative data. So it is basically categorical, right? It's like you are giving ranks for particular product satisfaction and etc. Then that is qualitative data. And quantitative data is very simple. It is written down with numbers. It has a measurable value, like what's the height of the students, or what's the shoe size, or the length of fingernails. It's just an example over here. Anything which can be measured with the numbers, that is your quantitative data. I think the difference between qualitative, quantitative, and primary and secondary data is clear to everyone. Uh, is there anyone who is having problem with these?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay, 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 okay. Okay, so now this is what data collection is basically, how you collect, uh, means what is primary data. Now, once you have collected your data, then you need to represent your data, right? So, representation can be in the form of charts and diagrams, right? So, these are the name of the charts, like bar chart is there, histogram is there, pictogram is there, pie chart, scattergram or scatter diagram is the more appropriate word. And we have stem and leaf plot to represent that data. Representation is basically required so that you can have or make have inferences and make decisions on the basis of those representation. So suppose, just taking this example, it's a secondary data. Indian passengers which are being carried in 2005 to 2010. And if you are using bar charts for that, then this is how a bar chart looks like. These are simple bars, and these blue colors are the simple bars, sky blue colors representing the amount which is on y-axis. So everyone, I know it might be clear. This is a 2D diagram in which there is on axis there is time, and on y-axis the number of passengers we have taken. So for the particular year, say 2005, the number is given by this bar, 2006 the second bar. So from this you can make the inference that in the year 2010 the number of passengers are least or highest in the year 2006. So to make conclusion and inferences, we use these charts. So this is what bar diagram looks like. It is the simplest form of representing data. It can be very neatly constructed and very easy to understand. The disadvantages are it can only be used with discrete data, right? So what is this discrete and etc. word which I have used here? See, when you are collecting data, then you are summarizing your data. So there are three types of data set which we basically use in all statistics. The first one, we have individual data set in which we use individual series. The second is discrete data set in which we use discrete series. And the last one is your continuous data set. In individual data set is like that we have collected the height of 60 students, and the 60 quantity are being displayed in front of you. That is individual data set. And in discrete, there comes the frequency. Frequency is basically the redundancy, the number of times that particular item is being repeated. Suppose there are 5 students having the height of 5 feet and 4 inches. So this data will be like this, that the height of 5 feet and 4 inches is of 5 students. So this kind of data in which we have frequency of the data set, that is discrete data set. And in continuous data set, there is always a class interval, right? These all three kind of data set I will be explaining when I start measurement of central tendency also. So you can use bar not for discrete and continuous data. Only individual data can be represented through these bar charts. Next is pie charts. When the data is in the form of percentages generally, or in the form of degrees like 360 degrees, 10 degrees, 20 degrees, then we use this kind of representation, which is pie chart. Okay. So this is how this complete circle represents the 100%, right? So in 2005, it is 16%. In 2006, it is 18%, then 18%, then 17, and then 16%. So this is how you generally represent data in the form of pie chart. If we talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of pie chart, that's very easy because sometimes percentage are not accurate, 100% accurate. So that is why these pie charts are not 100% accurate, and you cannot compare two data sets, right? And the same thing for representation of discrete and continuous, you cannot use this. Then we have line graph. uh, in these are the type of graphs which are generally used for identifying a trend kind of thing, right? You can see these kind of graphs very common on the index platform, right? On Sensex index, or the Nifty, which you see, or any commodity index. They generally use line graph. Why they use line? Because this represents a trend. Like you can say, to 2005 and 2006, it has been increasing. From 2006 to 2008, it is decreasing, but the rate of decrease is lesser as compared to 2008 and 2010 time interval. So these line graphs are basically used to identify trends. Okay. Then comes the scatter diagram. Scatter diagram is used to identify variations of your data, whether your data is following any kind of line or curve or not. That is why we use a scatter diagram, right? So this is generally how a scatter diagram look like. These can be simple dots also. Just to understand, I have make these big squares. These can be simple dots also. Okay. So here we can see that in this scatter diagram, a particular line or a particular increasing trend can be seen. Okay. And there is very less deviation in the values from the central line. They are not too much deviated. Okay. So scatter diagram is used when you want to identify the variation. Then comes stem and pictogram we used to generally nowadays it is used to let primary students understand the numbers. Okay. So this is what it looks like. So it is four dogs, or three and a half dogs, or cats, then three and a half, like. So this is what a pictogram basically representing in the form of pictures. Then comes stem and leaf plot. It is basically in the form of frequencies. This displays the actual data as well as its frequency. So, the problem of discrete data was there, na, which was not considered in the your bar diagram, is considered in stem and leaf plot. Okay, so on y-axis we take frequency, and on x-axis the value which we are going to determine, and in the final graph we display the frequencies of particular data for that particular item. Okay, so this is what is stem and leaf plot. Then comes this is how you basically represent your data in the form of graphs and charts. Depending on the nature of data you use, whether you want to use bar chart, or your pictogram, or line chart, right? I have explained when line charts are used for identifying trend. For individual data set, bar charts are used, and you can use for discrete data set stem and leaf plot. Next in the series of your first block is measurement of central tendency. It is very important because it is from where your first numerical portion of this block starts, which is measures of central tendency. So, what is central tendency? The real meaning of tendency is the nature which is being showed by the data, and central tendency is the nature around which all the values of the data set revolves. Okay, so central tendency is basically the average value. It is a very powerful tool of analysis of data that represent the entire mass of data. So you can say that central tendency is the representative number or the representative value of the entire data set. Okay, so an average is the single value. Yes, of course, it is a single value which is considered as the most representative or typical value for a given set of data. It acts as a representative value. So, such a value is neither the smallest nor the largest. So, it is somewhere around the middle of the data set. So, for this reason, average is frequently referred to as measure of central tendency, but we have many measures of central tendency. In general, we have three uh, measures of central tendency, in which the very first is arithmetic mean. The three measures are basically we have mean and median and mode. So these are the three measures of central tendency: mean, median, and mode, right? So arithmetic mean is the very first measure of central tendency, and it is easiest of all. So arithmetic mean is your average value, is usually denoted by the symbol x bar. X and ye upar jo above we have a single line. This line we called a bar. So this, when this is written, you can either say x bar or you can say average. Okay, of a set of observation is the value obtained by dividing the sum of observation by the total number, right? So I explained that there are three types of series: individual, discrete, or continuous, grouped or ungrouped, you can say. So individual data, also known as ungrouped data, right, where there is no grouping has been taken place. Let's move to the example of this. So these are the roll numbers of the student. Just remember, these are the roll numbers, not the number of a student. So roll number from 1 to 10 have obtained marks 43, 48, 55, 57, 21, 60, 37, 48, 78, and 59. Now you have to calculate the arithmetic mean. So for calculating arithmetic mean, you have to add all these marks, which are 43, 48, 55 till 59. Then when you add these marks, then the total will be 506, right? And you have to divide with the number of students. So there are in total 10 students in the class. So we just divide 506 by 10, which is 50.6. So the average marks of this data set, individual data set, or of this class is 50.6. Now you see the minimum marks in this data set is 21, and the maximum marks in this data set is 78, right? And this value 50.6 is nowhere related to 21 and 78. Why? Because this is the average or the representation of the entire class. How the entire class is performing is being represented by this. I think the calculation of individual data set arithmetic mean is clear to everyone. Is anyone having problem in this?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
So let's move to another type of series in which we have frequency distribution. In all statistics, the frequency is represented by small f. Okay. So the formula will become like this now. The average is equals to summation of fx divided by n, or you can write here also summation of f. या तो n लिखो या summation of f लिखो, frequency का sum आप लिखो, then it is okay. Here it is written also, and is equals to summation of the frequency. So this is the example from the following data of marks obtained by 50 students in a class. Calculate arithmetic mean. These are the marks 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 and 70, and these marks are represented by the value x, right? And this is your number of students, or you can say frequency. So here we have 8 students who got 20 marks, 12 students who got 30 marks, 15 students who got 40 marks, 5 students who got 50, 6 who got 60, and 4 who got 70 marks. So you have to calculate the mean because the formula was like some f. You have to do summation of fx upon summation of f. Summation of f is quite clear: 8 plus 12 plus 15 plus 5 plus 6 plus 4, which is the sum of frequency. Here it is summation of fx. So first you have to find fx. Let's go with the solution table. So here in the third column it is fx. You will multiply x with f and write in the third column correspondingly for all the values. Then you will add them, and then you divide by the n, which is the summation of all the frequency. Then you will be getting average marks, which is 40.2 in this case. I hope this is clear to everyone. So this is what grouped data, because you are grouping the data with the help of frequencies in it. Okay. So ungrouped was the individual data series, and this is an example of grouped data. Now grouping can be in the form of continuous series also. Okay. Which is the third series. Third type
Sorry,
of
ma'am.
series.
Hello.
Yes. Yes.
So ma'am, in the group series, have to multiply with the numbers, right?
Yes. You have to multiply with the frequency.
Okay, okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Like this it is written: f is the number of students, then you multiply it with 20, then it is 160, and so on, and finally you add it. Okay.
Clear, ma'am.
Okay. Now comes the continuous series. So this is the example of continuous series. Here we have sales in rupees lakh, and this is your X, your sales, okay? And number is always frequency. So it is like 0 to 10 lakhs ka sale, right? In this group particularly, the sale can range from 0 to 10 lakh. It can be 1 lakh, 1 lakh 50,000, 9 lakh, 9 lakh 90,000. It can be like that. Okay. And in the second group we have 10 to 20, then 20 to 30, then 40 to 50, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 60, and 60 to 70. And these are the number of companies or the number of firms which are having their sales in this particular group. So the firms having sale from 0 to 10 is 6. The number of firms having sales from 10 to 20 is 5. So there are 5 firms having sales ranging from 10 lakh to 20 lakh. See, there can be a confusion also. Suppose if a company is having a sale of 10 lakh rupees, then that company will come in the group of 0 to 10 or 10 to 20. This question can be there. Okay, so will that company be coming into the group of 0 to 10 or 20 to 20? So when there is like continuous series, na, then always the higher number is considered in the second group. So if it is 9,99,999, then this will come in the first. But because it is 10 lakh, then 10 lakh will come in the second group.
Second.
Okay, I think the problem is clear to everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is how the grouping is done and the frequency is distributed. So this is the example. Now we will be calculating the mean for this particular data set. So here it is sales, which is represented by X, which is you can say 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40. Now, what you have to do when you have a continuous series, you always calculate the mid value, right? And mid value is calculated simply by adding the extremes and dividing them by 2, right? So for the first column, it will be 0 plus 10 divided by 2, which is 5. Then 10 plus 20 divided by 2, right? For second, it will be 10 plus 20 divided by 2, which is 30 by 2, then 15. Okay, so this is how you calculate all mid values of your class interval. This continuous data of X is known as class interval. Okay, we call it a class interval, where lower limit, if we talk about first class interval here, then the lower limit is 0 and the upper limit is 10, right? For the second class interval, the lower limit is 10 and the upper limit is 20. So the very first step for calculating mean, you have to find the mid value of your class interval. Once you have calculated the mid value, then the question becomes same as your discrete data. Now what you have to do, you multiply this mid value with f, okay, which is fm. So 6 multiplied by 5, then 5 multiplied by 15, and 8 multiplied by 25. So these values you will be getting by multiplying all these. Now what you have to do, you have to find sum of just a second, sum of this fm, and you have to find the sum of f. Okay, so the sum of f here is 50, and the sum of fm, this particular column, is 1670, and the mean will be 1670 divided by 50, which is rupees 33.4 lakhs. So all these, the representative value for all these 50 companies is, they are having an average sales of 33.4 lakhs, right? So this is how you calculate average for your grouped data, continuous grouped data. Is this clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Then there's a
Yes, ma'am.
shortcut method, or you can say assumed mean method, to calculate average, right? Here bar is missing. X bar is equals to A, which is your assumed mean, plus summation of F and D is the deviation, F is your frequency, and N is the number, total number, or you can say summation of frequency. It's just to make your calculations simple. When you are calculating average of very big numbers, then multiplication is basically difficult kind of thing if you are doing it manually. But nowadays calculators are there. At the time this statistics was discovered, there were no calculators and all. Every calculation is being done with their minds only. That is why these shortcut methods are developed during that time. So let's take an example for calculating this shortcut average. So the same example which we use for calculating the mean, you have identified like this. There were sales and you find the mid value, then you find the mean which was 33.4 lakhs, right? Suppose you don't know what is the mean, then what you do, you actually make, just assume something to be a mean by simple observation, right? Suppose here I am assuming this 35 to be the mean of this particular data set, right? So what we will say this 35 to be assumed mean. You can represent
Assumed.
it by a small a also or capital A also, whatever you want to use. Now you have to calculate deviations of this data from particular mean which is 35. So these are the deviations. Suppose I have assumed mean to be 35, right? So 35 minus 5. We are calculating deviation now from mid value. These deviations are represented by small d. So 35 minus 5 will be minus 30. 35, 15 minus 35 will be minus 20. Then 25 minus 35 will be minus 10. 35 minus 35 will be 0. 45 minus 35 is 10. 55 minus 35 is 20, and 65 minus 35 is 30, right? Now what you have to do, you have to identify, you will multiply these deviations with the frequency. So 30 multiplied by f, which is 180, and so on, you just multiply and you add all these values. Then after multiplying, you add all these values. So the addition is quite simple now, and it is coming minus 80, then we have 50, and assumed mean is 35, which we have assumed. You just put it in the formula, and then you will be getting your answer, which is 33.4 lakhs. The answer will not change because it is the method that has changed, and it's up to you whether you want to use shortcut method or you want to use long cut method. Okay, so this is what assumed mean method, right? You just assume a mean, as we have assumed 35 in this case, and then you identify the deviations. आप चाहे तो आप यहाँ पर भी d लिख सकते हैं, right? Just like 5 minus 35, right? So you can write in here also by in a single column and then do that. Okay, it's just for the reason of comparison I have used this. This is another example for assumed mean method. I think all the types of mean for individual or grouped data, the three types, individual series, discrete series, and continuous series, are clear to you people, because we
Yes, ma'am.
have only 4 to 5 lectures scheduled now, so we have to complete the maximum thing in this 1 hour. Okay, that's why I am taking a fast pace. The next measure is median. See, when you cannot identify the central tendency with average, right? You can calculate average very clearly, but that average is not the true representative of that particular data set. Then you use positional averages, and median and mode are positional averages. Okay, so this median is very simple. It is the middle value of any data set. When you have a data set, you just arrange that data set in ascending or descending order, and the value which is coming in middle is median. Okay, so for example, these there are 12 students whose marks are given 25, 20, and you have to find the median of these 12 students. Then you can arrange this data in either ascending or descending order, in whichever order you feel like. Here it is arranged in ascending order, right? Smallest to the largest. So then you have to identify the middle value. The middle value is the
Do
number of items in this data set are 12, right?
Right.
So you cannot identify the clear middle value because the middle value will be either sixth or seventh. So what you
Yes, ma'am.
do when n is your even number, then you take the average of both the middle terms. So here it is 25 and 25 coming in sixth and seventh place. Then you take the average of this, which is here it is 25 only because both the numbers are 25. So 25 plus 25 divide by 2, which is 25, and it is the median value, right? So when you have
Yes, ma'am.
n in even, you take average of two positions. And if suppose n is odd, like 13 students might be there, and suppose 49 is the marks of those 13 students, then of course the seventh place will be the median. Okay, so this
Medium.
is what n is even and if n is odd. Is this clear to everyone? For
Yes, ma'am.
individual data set calculation of
Yes,
median. Now
clear,
let's
ma'am.
move on to discrete, or the data which is having frequency. So these are the steps. Prepare the cumulative frequency table of all the frequency. Generally we add corresponding frequencies and make a cumulative frequency table. Then we do n by 2. Then find the class frequency just greater than n by 2, and the corresponding value will gives the median. Just quickly moving to the example of this, then it will be very clear to you people. Suppose this is the example. You have income. Income will be represented by X, and because this is the number of persons, then this will be your F. So we have income which is 100, 1500, 800, 2000, 2100, and 1700. And we have persons 24, 26, 14, 10, 5, and 28 persons having 1700 as their uh, income. Okay, so we just make the table in a vertical form and find this cumulative frequency. How this cumulative frequency is calculated? We just add the corresponding frequency. First frequency will be 14 only. This 38 is by adding 24 to 14, right? Then the value 64 is there by adding 26 to 38. You add 26 to
अच्छा ऐसे
38,
निकालनी है
then you will be
cumulative.
getting 64. Then you add 28 to 64, you will be getting 92. 92 plus 10, 102. 102 plus 5 will give you 107. So this is how cumulative frequencies are calculated. If you have calculated this cumulative frequency, then question is solved, because now what you have to do, you have to find the size, right? And size can be obtained by dividing cumulative frequency by 2. So here the cumulative frequency last value is 107, or you can say the summation of f. It will also come 107. So you divide 107 by 2, n by 2, you are getting 53.5. Now you have to identify the class
अच्छा अच्छा
which
ठीक है
has
कोई सुनिए.
this value just greater than 53.5. So now 14 is lesser than 53.5, 38 is lesser than 53.5, the 64 is greater than 53.5. Yes, 92 is also greater, 102 is also greater, 107 is greater. But you have to identify nearest, okay? So 64 is the nearest. So the median for this data set will be 1500. 64 median नहीं होगा, 26 median नहीं होगा. Okay, median will be from X. Okay, so this is your median. I hope this is
सर
clear
सॉरी मैम.
how you calculate median for discrete data.
Sorry ma'am, can you
Yes,
repeat
ma'am.
again how come 107 come out?
107, okay, 107 is the total of frequency. right? This 14, 20, 14 plus 24, 14 plus 24 plus 26 plus 28 plus 10 plus 5, right? And
Okay,
this is
clear,
what
clear,
this
clear.
also, okay? This is this also. These
Right, ma'am,
both are
right.
same because we are adding only na in cumulative frequency. That's
Right,
why.
ma'am.
Okay. So is this clear now to everyone how we
Yes,
calculate
ma'am.
median for discrete data?
Yes, ma'am, clear.
Now
Thank you so much.
next,
Yes, ma'am,
okay,
clear.
next slide is basically related to calculation of median for continuous data, right? All the statistics will be for three types of data only: data set, individual data set, discrete data set, or you can say continuous data set. So this is the formula for calculating median from for your continuous data set. You all know what is continuous data set now. So we have what we have to do, we have to calculate cumulative frequency, then we have to calculate n by 2, then we have to locate class cumulative frequency just greater than n by 2. This is same which we did in that. Now what we have to do, we have to identify the median class, which is actually different. Just note down this formula, then we'll be moving to the question, because from question it will be very clear to you people which is what. So if you want to write notions also, you can. M is the median, L1 is the lower limit of median class, L2 is the upper limit of median class, and F is simple frequency, CF is cumulative frequency, and M is n by 2, which is already written. Okay, so these are the notions. Let's quickly take the example now. Suppose this is the example. These are the annual profits of 60 firms: 4, 5, 11, 6, 5, 8, 9, 6, 4, 2. When you add all these, here it is also clear. Number is frequency and the data is represented by X. Now you have to calculate the median for this. Just the very first step, what you have to do, you have to find the cumulative frequency, right? 4 is written like this only. Then we have 4 plus 5, which is 9, 9 plus 11, which is 20, 20 plus 6, it is 26, 26 plus 5 is 31, 31 plus 8 is 39, and so on, right? Now, the first step which you have to is identify n by 2. So here n is 60. N is what? N is basically summation of f. Okay. So summation f by 2, which is 60 by 2, it is 30. Now what you have to do? You have to identify the cumulative frequency that is just greater than 30. So the cumulative frequency that is thus just greater than 30 is 31, right? And this is the corresponding class interval, which is 35 to 40 will become your median class. Okay. Is this clear to everyone? Three
Yes, ma'am.
steps we did. We
Yes,
find
ma'am.
the cumulative frequency, then we find the size, and then we find out the class frequency which is just greater than 30, which was 31. So this will become your median class.
Median
So
class.
for this class, L1 will be 35 and L2 will be 40,
40.
right? L1 is the lower limit and L2 is the upper limit. You just put it in the formula and try to find the median. This is the formula where L1 will become 35 plus L2 is 40 minus 35 upon summation of your frequency into M, which is 30, minus C. What is C? The difference. Okay. Just a
Okay.
Difference of
second.
what, ma'am?
Your cumulative frequency, beta. M minus C is your cumulative frequency. क्यूमुलेटिव फ्रीक्वेंसी कितना है उस पर्टिकुलर क्लास
10,
का?
10.
31।
Oh, sorry. Sorry, sorry.
क्यूमुलेटिव बेटा, क्यूमुलेटिव। And this cumulative frequency, okay? So this is how you will calculate. आप लोग कर लीजिए calculate if you want to do and tell me the answer. Just a second. The cumulative frequency will be written of the class interval prior to the median class. There is a check in that. So the cumulative frequency which you will write is 26. So 30 minus 26 will come, not 31. 30 minus previous वाली cumulative frequency हम लेते हैं. So 30 minus 26. Now you can calculate it. This C is cumulative frequency preceding median class. Preceding median class. Has anyone got the answer?
Yes, ma'am. 40.
I 40 is exact, 40 is coming.
40 minus 35 कैसे होता है? Oh no, ma'am.
Exact 40 cannot be the answer.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Apply board mass also, please. Just consider.
मैम
39.
36
Yes, ma'am.
पॉइंट
Yes, ma'am.
समथिंग आएगा मैडम.
Yes, you are correct. So, since this is how you will calculate the median for your continuous data. Right. So, what we have discussed today is what is data, and we have discussed primary data and secondary data. Then we have discussed quantitative data and qualitative data. And with respect to that central tendency, we have started. And in central tendency, uh, two types of central tendencies are covered, completed, which is mean and median. Here is one other example is also given. You can calculate median for that. It's just for your practice. If you want to calculate, you can calculate. That's it. Let's move on to let me give you the simple idea of mode. Mode is the most frequent observation, right? The observation which has highest frequency is mode. Okay. So let's see the ungrouped data because that is the easiest. So we have the marks obtained by 10 students. This is their serial number or the roll number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 till 10. So from observation, you can tell that which is the most frequent number. So the most frequent number in this data set is 15, right? Because 16 is by single one student, 27 is also by, sorry, 27 will be the answer because 27 is by 3 students, 15 by only 2 students. Okay, so how many times, the largest times the number is being repeated is your mode. So in this data set, 27 is being repeated thrice, right? 3 students are there who get 27 as their marks. So the mode for this data set will be 27. Is this clear to everyone what is mode?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, clear, ma'am.
Too easy.
Right? So from observation only you can tell. So this is your mode, which is 27. For discrete data and for continuous data, there is a complete process which we will be discussing in next class because the time is over. So are there any questions you need
मैम
to ask?
मैम मैम मैं
Yes,
ये मैम
yes,
मैम मैं ये कह रहा था कि मैम अभी हमको असाइनमेंट भी करना है. आपका क्लास मैम बहुत अच्छे से समझ में आया, लेकिन ये तो सिर्फ एक नोट है, नोट 1 है समझिए एक का. लेकिन अगर मुझे
yes.
अब सारे आपके जो सारी जो क्लासें हैं वो तो मैम अभी नहीं पूरी हो पाएंगी जब तक हम असाइनमेंट करेंगे कंप्लीट। तो अब क्या मैम ऐसा कुछ हो सकता है, मेरे पास बुक्स भी नहीं आई हैं, इसलिए ऐसा कुछ हो सकता है कि आप